someone who doesn't understand the uh, the how moderate we should be with what we eat, and it's really important uh, when it's come to Buddhist teachings that um, why we eat what we eat is something that very clearly addressed in Buddhist teachings. Sometimes we forget why we eat, and we eat because we are hungry. Uh, but it sort of has become another thing that we do uh, rather than its real reason why we eat. And so I think this is something that has been in the society forever. And so that's why we look at food that way. Uh, and also, this also has a really um, negative, bad outcomes for us as a society. And in, in European countries, they really struggle with because of the food industry and the people desires and overeating, which is going to make us obese. Obesity is becoming a really real issue in the society, and it's unfortunately it has become well. There are people who have a, a medical reasons that why they can have control their weight, but if you go back to their uh, lifestyle changes, when we go back to how they have not um, uh, watch what they eat or have not focused on the well-being, overall well-being, or maybe why they ate what they eat. Maybe it was the uh, whatever the trauma that they went through, the depression that they went through. Sometimes for some people, in order to deal with all these negative things that happen to them in life, is the only way that they can deal with is actually through by eating more food. And so there are things that we need to address when it's come to these things. But as we all know today, especially in Western society, food industry, little little by little, food industry really actually killing us. And salt, sugar, uh, too many carbohydrates, and so we just live in a society that we put uh, the new generation through this nightmare as well. And so, Bojanam Hita Amatanya. So, if someone knows the moderation, if someone understands uh, why they eat what they eat, and have a very good understanding of that, so they can really watch what they eat, and every time when they eat something, they can be more mindful of it, and we make it food is something that we use uh, to encourage people to gather around together, um, to have gatherings, parties, and so everything involved with food. But when these things happens, we really are not consuming our food with mindfulness. And so I grew up as a monk since I was 11 years old, and I used to go begging for my food with a begging bowl every morning. And so we would bring the food to the table and we shared with everybody. As we eat, our teacher always watching us. And so we only focus on the bowl that we used to eat, and then we focus on it, and then we started to eat um, food mindfully. And so our there is a uh, very clearly stated why we are eating these food. And so before we eat, there is a sort of a chanting that we do. It's it's a reminder for us, and it tells us that why we eat, and it says that we are eating this because we are hungry, and this energy that we get through our food, we are using that energy to uh, continue this life that we have received from the nature. And so uh, I think we are kind of going away from this, the basic understanding why we eat what we eat. And so if we have a good idea, if we have a good understanding about food, and so the opposite of it, bhojanam hita amattanyam. And so if someone can focus on uh, knowing uh, the 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 portion control, mattanyam. Matta means if somebody understand the right portion that person should be eating and not overeating. And so how many times that we get stuffed up eating too much things, and how many times we eat during the day even when we don't need to eat. I so again, and these teachings are really not asking us to not to eat or to starve ourselves to death. And because why he's saying these things, he tried all these things as a prince. He had he went to extremes, trying all this stuff. And as a ascetic, he went to ascetic, I think. He went to jungle and under trees eating leaves, and he went to that extremes, not eating at all, fainting so many times. And then he found the balance, and once he found this balance, that he realized that we need to eat what we eat uh, to keep on going, to have the energy to continue with this life and to do whatever you do. It could be to support your family or to continue with your monk life or whatever you are doing in your life. And so it's really important that we understand, have an understanding why we eat what we eat. And so when we learn to eat mindfully, when we are aware of what we eat, we become healthier. And of course, that healthier lifestyle, the more healthy we are mentally, and when more healthy we are physically, going to affect us mentally. And so right there, big part of this contentment, the balance, is already achieved in life. And so when we don't have that, that's where I think we ended up. Uh, it's a full cycle, and so that's why we need to sit down and sort of sit down with ourselves and contemplate and to think about these things. And when we don't focus on these things, we become very unhappy, and our lives become very unhealthy. When we are become unhealthy physically, and we become unhealthy psychologically. And so think about these things, and I hope you will take time to have this dialogue with yourself. So next time when you eat, you will pay attention to what you eat and find the balance and be more mindful. So thank you for listening again. And so I'm hoping that this conversation with this was this Dhammapada verse next week. So please tune in. Thank you very much.